Oh, might actually do it, A miracle might happen. Oh, it did. That is really phenomenal. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, that's grand. Now then, where am I? Good, I'm here. All right, everybody, lovely to see you. Right, now let's go and let's begin. Share prayer. All right. So let's start off with our prayer, shall we? Okay, and our prayer is for Bezrat Hashem, safety and victory for our soldiers, wherever they are, and that God should watch over them, and a refuah shalema for the wounded, and a safe return soon for the hostages. Amen. Okay, wonderful to have you all. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אף רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבינך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח. ותציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבל ניכשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמה נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביטה נפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. כן יהי רצון. Okay, wonderful. Now, then, let's go to Lech Lecha. So the first we're going to do today is we're going to look at the very, very first. Wait a minute, am I showing that okay? Can you see the text? Lech Lecha, I'm not quite sure that it's showing properly. And do that again. Do that again. Share. That's the one I want. Share. Oh, okay. Hopefully you can work it. You can see that. View. Let's zoom out a wee bit. There you go. That's more comfortable. Okay, so Parshat Lech Lecha. Anyhow, if you can't see it, something in the chat so you can tell me that you can't see it or something. Now, this very first piece of Zohar I found actually very fascinating. Lech Lecha, God says to Abraham, okay, Lech Lecha me artzecha, me moladatcha, or me beit avicha. Okay, leave your land, leave your father's house, leave your birthplace and leave your father's house. And the Hasidim understand this as meaning, leave your desires, your will to receive for yourself alone, which you're born with, which come from your education, which come from your environment, which come from all the things that you've known, and move. And the Zohar says, la'atzmacha, move to yourself, okay, to who you need to be. That's what the actual Zohar says, okay? Thanks. So the Zohar says, so God spoke to Abraham and he says this, okay, move to where you need to be, move to your purpose, move to your true self. And since the Torah is not a history book, but it needs to be read in the present, that every single one of us has the aspect of Abraham within us, okay? The Zohar then asks a question, a powerful question. Rabbi Abba Patach va'amar, Shimu Elai Abirei Lev, Harachokim Mitzdaka. Shimu Elai Abirei Lev, Kama Tekifin Lebeu Dechayvayu, Dechaman Shivile Va'orchei Deoraita, Velo Mistaklan Behu, Lebayu Tekifin, Velo Mehadrin Betiufta, Legabe Marei Hon Vikun Abirei Lev, Harachokim Mitzdaka, Demitrachakei Meoraita. Rabbi Abba opens his discourse. And basically, what he's asking is, why did Abraham merit that God should say to him, Lech Lecha? Okay? Why did Abraham merit that God should actually say to him, come to him and say, Lech Lecha, Lech Lecha mi'artzcha, me Beit Avicha, me moladetcha, and go to the place which I'm going to show you. What got the, I mean, just imagine if we were to hear those words, okay, or maybe in some sense we have heard them in our lives, which took us on the path which has now brought us to learn Torah together, okay? What causes us to hear those words? All right? And he says more than the other members of his generation. All right? So we know the story of Abraham, okay, that here he was, Abraham surrounded in a family of idol worshippers, in an environment of idol worshippers, okay? And God says to him, you've got to go out of there. What led him to be able to hear this? What, if you like, I mean, there's two aspects, isn't there? There's God saying Lech Lecha, but there's Abraham hearing Lech Lecha. Okay, maybe God is saying Lech Lecha to us all the time. All right, but but we notice it when we're hearing it. Do you see what I'm saying? So these are the questions that this first sentence of the Zohar woke up in me. Now you can take the story of Abraham, and of course it gives you sort of like the context in which to think about this. But you can say that, you know, all the aspects of his generation are found within me, because the Torah is talking in the present tense, not talking as a history book. Okay? So we've got the Abraham within me, the part of me which is looking for God, which is searching for that connection. And then there's all the other aspects of my will to receive for myself alone, which are sometimes called the 70 nations, okay? And they're all reflected within me. And so Rabbi Abba brings the two sides, okay? And he says, Shimu Elai Abirei Lev, Harachokim Mitzdaka. Listen to me. Now, Abir Lev is well, the thought that comes up in me is actually sort of like a knight in armor. Okay, these very strong, minded people, but you know, who dressed in armor. Okay, who are far from stucker. Shimu Elai Abirei Lev. This is from a verse in Isaiah chapter 46, and I looked it up. You know what? We can look it up now. Let's go do that. Isaiah chapter 46. I can't remember which verse. Let's have a look and see. 1 second. Nechon, that will do. And Isaiah chapter 46. And let me change the share so we can actually see it. There we go. This whole chapter is really about the Gemara Tikkun, as far as I remember it. It's hard to understand, all right? But let's just do the bit before, and so then we'll see the context. Zichru zot v'ta'osheshu, hashivu pushim alev. Remember this and stand fast. Bring it to mind, you transgressors. Zichru rishonot me'olam. Remember the first things of old. Kanochi el ve'ein od Elohim ve'efes kamoni. I am God, and there's no other God beside me. Magidra merishit acharit. Right from the beginning, I know the end. Mikedem asher lo nasu. And from the beginning, when things are still not done, Omer tzati takum, my counsel shall stand, v'kol chefzi eseh, and all my desire I will do. In other words, the purpose of creation will certainly come to its fulfillment. Korei mimizrach ait, calling a bird of prey from the east, me'etz merchak ichatzato, af dibarti, af aviyene yatzoti, af esena. What I have spoken, I will bring to pass. What I have purposed, I will do it. Okay, so like, yes, the Gemara Tikkun is certainly going to happen. Shimu elai abirei lev harachokim mitzdaka. Listen to me, you abirei lev. He calls it stout-hearted, but I'm kind of imagining, like a plate of armor in front of the heart, who are far from staka. Like they're not listening, they're not aware, they're completely like blank or closed off to the call of God. Kirafti tzidkati lo tirchak. I'm bringing my righteousness. Don't push it away. Uchuati lo ta'acher. And my salvation will not tarry. V'natati b'tzion tshua. And I will place salvation in Zion. L'Yisrael tifarti. And in Israel my glory. So the Abirei Lev are kind of like the people who are like got a like an armor in front of your heart. And I thought about that sort of metaphor, why he's using it. And I think that there is a aspect of ourselves which is like not wanting. Wait a minute, have I got this sharing right? I don't think so. Share. That's it, going back to where we were. Like when you close your heart off and you don't want to penetrate, don't want the light of God to penetrate it, you don't want to feel the suffering, you don't want to feel the reality because of the connection with God, because you want to be in the bubble of the will to receive oneself alone. So he says, even that aspect, listen to me, okay? Those who are far from tzedakah. Tzedakah is charity, but we're going to see it means it's got another connotation here. It means how hard are the hearts of the wicked? What's the wicked? The will to receive oneself alone. That's the problem. When we're in our bubble of our will to receive oneself alone, we really are in a bubble and we're not allowing the light of God to penetrate. So God can be saying, okay, Lech Lecha, okay, because he wants to bring about the end of the Tikkun. He wants to bring us to that connection with him. And we're just not hearing it if our hearts are closed off. All right? So, Rabbi, the Zohar here defines as the aspect of ourselves which is closed, that we see the pathways and the inner pathways and the ways of the Torah. What is that? The innermost pathways are the inner intentions and the inner meanings, And the outer ways, the shvilim is the inner meanings, and the ochot, the ways, are the ethics and the morals and the outer mitzvot, okay, of the Torah. And yet, even though they're present and we can learn them, they're not looking at them, okay? They don't want to know them. Now, I'm not talking about people outside of me. I'm talking about parts of myself, okay? So, ulibavam kasher, their heart is hard, and veinam chosrim b'tshuva al rabonam, and they're not going back in tshuva to their master. V'al ken nikraim abirei lev, and that's why they're called abirei lev. It's like they've got this, this sheet of metal right over their heart. Harachokim tzedakah. They don't want to be giving. Tzedakah means charity, okay? Giving unconditionally, all right? We're going to look at the process of the Abraham process, if you like, and how we get to that connection. Is there any questions so far? It's a little bit complex, this piece of Zohar, but I think it's very meaningful. Okay, so is everybody okay, or is everybody stuck? You can put in the chat, okay, or stuck or something, or have you got any questions? All right, let's hope for the best. Rabbi Chizkiah now. Rabbi Chizkiah is going to sort of like carry on with the thought of Rabbi Abba here. Dimitra hakemi kutchabrichu ve'inun v'chikin minei ubegin kachikun abir lev harachokim mitzedakah. דלא באים לקרבה לגבי קודשא בריחו. בגין כך אינון רחוקים מצדקה, כיוון דינון רחוקים מצדקה ורחוקים אינון משלום. דלית לון שלום, דכתיב אין שלום אמר השם לרשעים, מה טעמה? בגין דאינון רחוקים מצדקה. So, Rabbi Chizkiah carries on with this idea, and he says they are far away from God. What does far away mean? Far away means, in the language of Kabbalah, that they're not in affinity of form. Oh, somebody's written something in the chat. What's it say? Hang in there. Good. Well done, Chaya. Rabbi Chizkiah says, so they are far away from God. Okay, in other words, the part of ourselves which is still stuck with our wills to receive for ourselves alone in our bubble of self thing, okay, of self-absorption, all right, are not in affinity of form from God, because we've got this sort of like armor over our hearts, which is not allowing God to penetrate it. It's not allowing the words Lech Lecha to penetrate it, all right? And therefore, they're far away from tzedakah. Now, tzedakah means charity, okay? You have to give tzedakah, right? Charity. But what does charity here mean? It means giving unconditionally, okay? That's what the word is actually meaning. So they are not in affinity of form with God because they don't want to come to giving unconditionally. Now, we've got our will to receive for ourselves alone, okay? That's where we all begin, all right? And we've got the will to give unconditionally, yeah? All right. How do you get from one to the other? How do we make that move from the will, the armored will to receive oneself alone to the will to give unconditionally? How do we make that? How do we make that journey? All right. And first of all, we have to want to make the journey. Okay, so what's the difference between Abraham and the will to receive, the Abirei Lev? It's the listening. He wanted to make that journey. He was listening for that call. Yes? He wanted to go there. And this is what it says. Why are they far from giving unconditionally? Because they don't want to. Okay? So there's a part of ourselves, which is the Abraham, that wants to make that journey. And there's a part of ourselves which doesn't want to make that journey. All right? So we want to listen to the Abraham within us. Okay? that we want to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we want to make that journey. So what did Abraham do? He prayed. He asked God to help him. It's very simple, really. Okay? He asked God, he began to recognize, okay, there must have been something in him that began to recognize the unity of God. And he prayed. And he said, okay, God, will you help me get to know you? Can I come further on this journey with you? And because he prayed, okay, God answered him. Now, Rabbi Chizkiyahu is strengthening the idea of the will to receive oneself alone, which doesn't want to go on that journey. And because that aspect is far from tzedakah, far from giving unconditionally, they're also far from peace. And they don't have any peace. Okay? The will to receive oneself alone does not give us peace. Okay? It gives us instant gratification, yes, but peace, no. Because whatever pleasure we get from our will to receive ourselves alone, it does not last. Now, there's a wonderful description in the where is it? In the Zohar of the breaking of the vessels, that the vessels which receive themselves alone, okay, are like the sparks that come from a blacksmith's hammer. You can imagine that, the blacksmith banging away and out comes the sparks. What happens? They flare and die. That's the pleasures we get from our will to receive for ourselves alone. It flares and dies, which leaves us with even more longing than we had before. So the aspect of our will to receive for ourselves alone, which is not only hard-hearted, it doesn't let any love or connection penetrate, it doesn't give us peace either. Okay? As it's written, Ein shalom amar Hashem l'rashaim. There is no peace, said the Lord, for the wicked. Matam, what's the reason? Mishum she'em rechokim mitzedakah, because they are far from charity, they're far from giving unconditionally, they are not in affinity of form with the Creator. V'alkein ein lehem shalom, so they have no peace. All right, there's something else in the chat here. Let's have a look. Tzila, I wonder how he came to the recognition in the first place. Yes, that's the question. Now, I don't know the answer, but I also asked myself that question. And we have to look a little bit at, I think, at Zechut Avot. Okay, what's Zechut Avot? The merit of the forefathers. Avraham, everybody came from Adam, yes? And Adam Arishon. And Adam certainly knew and had connection with God. Okay? Following the sin from the Garden of Eden, he begat, Cain and Abel. The Zohar tells us that the poison of the snake went into Cain, unfortunately, and we know that from his actions, that he murdered Abel. Abel, as far as we know, did not have any children. Cain did, okay? And his offspring multiplied. But after he did tshuva, he had another son called Shet. Okay, so Shet was God-fearing. Okay, he did not go in the way of Cain, and he was begat, meaning that he carried on the tshuva, the connection with God that came about following Adam and Chava's tshuva. And Shet was the father or grandfather, I don't remember, of Noach. Okay? And Noach goes into the ark. Noach is a tzaddik. Okay? The world, all the offspring, I suppose, of Cain were died in the flood, except for Nama, Cain's who was a descendant of Cain, and she was Noah's wife. And then from Noah, you have Shem, Ham, and Yafet, and Shem was one of those who connected with God, and you have the Midrash, the Beit Midrash of Shem ve'Ever, and Avraham was a descendant of Shem. Okay, so you can see that there is a tradition of the connection with God which came down to Avraham. So he's got Zechut Avot. He's got the merit of his forefathers. He's got some tradition, okay, of Adam Rishon, of Shet, of Noach, of Shem, okay? So it's not he had to completely come from nothing. He's got that. You can say that others also had that possibility, but he's connecting with that possibility. He's listening to that possibility. He's being open to that possibility. All right. So that's my answer to you, Tzila. Okay. So we need to be listening to those possibilities that are there, which God is sending us. And the problem isn't for most isn't that they're not there. It's that we're not hearing it. Okay. We don't want to hear it. But if we want that connection with God, we have to know it's there. So if we go back now to the Perush here, okay. Perush, the Malchut mibchinat hadin sheba nikreit tzedek. So the Malchut, which is, what is the Malchut? The Malchut is the vessel with which we can receive the light of God. Okay? It's the vessel. It's also called governance because it's got different choices about how it wants to receive that light, how it wants to relate. So the Malchut mibchinat hadin sheba, so it starts off, its basic characteristic of the Malchut is the fact that it is a will to receive. Okay? Now, Avraham wants to be in holiness. He wants to be connected only with the framework of holiness. That's what he wants. Okay? So he says, okay, Hashem, I understand that there is good and bad in the world. I understand there's connection and there's disconnection. There is judgment. There is, this is what I'm seeing. Okay, and this is therefore the Malchut at this point is called Tzedek. Okay, judgment. All right. And what's the part? How does the Malchut, which wants to be in the framework of holiness, how does it deal with this fact that you can see good and you can see bad? It goes through faith. All right. It says, okay, I can see all these things, and I have the faith that everything that is happening is good. All right. So that's the functioning of the Malchut at the level of Tzedek, that we can see good and we can see bad, and yet we go from the aspect of that everything that happens is for the good. Okay, that's Tzedek. That's the first level. So now a person wants to be in faith, okay? But it's difficult. He can the reality of the world, the physicality of the world, the things that we see, the things that we undergo, the sufferings of ourselves and of our other people, is very hard always to do that, to be in faith. But we can pray to God and say to God, you know what? I would like to be connected with you. I want to believe that everything that's happening is for the good. That's what I want to do. I want to believe, and please will you help me to believe? So when a person prays that he wants help to believe in God, okay, then God gives him the light of faith. Okay, first we have to pray for faith, and then God actually gives us the light of faith. So first we have to have the desire for faith, and then we actually, God gives us the light of faith. Okay, so there's a prayer involved. So the aspect of Avraham actually needs to pray at this point that we can be together with God in faith. Now, when we do that, okay, this is called the unification of the Shekhinah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, the Kodesh Baruch we're uniting with God because we're coming into affinity of form. So now we have Besod HaZivug Gadol, the Tzaddik v'Tzedek. Tzaddik is the righteous one, the one who is in affinity of form with God, okay? And that is the level of the Zer Anpin. Remember that Yosef was called the Tzaddik, okay? So it's the level of the Yesod, the level of Zer Anpin. It's the next level up, which we also call HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Tzedek is the Malchut. And they're uniting together because Avraham has prayed and has now become in affinity of form with the Tzaddik. Now, this is the level of faith. Now, not like wanting to have faith, but actually having faith, okay? So that's the next level up, okay? Where we actually can attain the fact that, that there is reward and punishment, meaning that when we do a tzaddik, we can see and feel the connection. When we do a mitzvah, we can see and feel the connection with God. And when we do an avirah, God forbid, we can see and feel the disconnection from God, okay, the separation from God. So that's the level of the tzedek and the tzaddik joining together, the malchut and the zer anpin coming together, which is the level of clearly seeing the cause and effect. All right? The reward and punishment. The reward of a mitzvah has been connected with God, and the reward and the consequences of a sin being separated from God. Okay? But that's the first level of the tzaddik. Yeah? And Avraham now gets to that. Okay? And then there's one more step. And then the Zer Anpin and the Malchut then go up together to the next level, which is Bina. And the next level of Bina is being able to give unconditionally, tzedakah. And that is when it becomes the aspect of love, the aspect of connection with God from love, because you now come to realize that absolutely everything truly is love. Okay, so we've gone from hoping that that's like it, realizing that that's like it, and now actually experiencing that that really is the case. V'hi nikret tzedakah, it's called tzedakah, klomar, that the malchut now is transformed from judgment, okay, and having to use wanting to be using faith, to ima, to actually receiving the love of God, receiving the connection of God, but not in order to use it in order to, get some sort of a spiritual ecstasies or anything like that, but nitapechet l'rachamim, meaning to give tzedakah, meaning to give unconditionally, like in the presence of the light of God. I still want to be giving. Because I want to be loving God. And that's the movement that Avraham did. Yes, sorry, somebody called out. Yeah.
Yedida, but how is it that, how did this manifest in Abraham's actual day-to-day life?
How did that manifest in actual Abraham's day-to-day life?
I mean, like, how did this descend upon him? How did this awareness descend upon him? He's living like surrounded by idol worshipers. What is it that's connecting him? You know what I'm saying? Was it the test that he was going through, or what was it?
It's an excellent question. I wish I was a fly in the wall.
It's not written anywhere.
Abraham's tent, I wish I could go back to, be a fly in the wall in Abraham's tent. I think that there's probably a lot of midrashim. I don't know. I'm not very good on midrash, but if you were to open the midrash, I'm sure there'd be a lot of stories. And these stories, you have to be aware of midrash. The midrash is not literal, okay? Rabbi Ashlag says midrash is like an orange, okay? You peel off the outer form and you take the inner meaning. You have to be careful with midrash because it's a bit like Aesop's fables, you know. Don't take them literally. I don't really think there ever was a tortoise and a hare who actually ran a race, okay? But the moral of the story of the tortoise and the hare who wanted a competition to see who would win, okay, is a good moral story. And that's the way you want to look at midrash. But if you were to look at the midrash, you'd probably find a lot of questions like this about, what made Abraham. You could probably, have a look there and get some answers that way. It's a very, very good question. But I'm more interested, to be honest, in what's the question for me in my life? How can in my life I can be aware of the possibility of God saying to me, Lech Lecha, me'artzecha, me'moladatcha, me'beit avicha, ve'telech le'eretz asher and go in the direction which I'm going to show you. Like, can I in my life listen to the voice of God telling me to get out of my old habits, okay, wherever they've come from, and go in the direction that He's going to show me in the way of giving unconditionally? And that is a really, really, really difficult thing to do because none of us really know in advance what giving unconditionally is really like until we're actually doing it. There's nothing to guide us. It's like a jump into the unknown. And we can't know it from our backgrounds because our backgrounds are all the will to receive for ourselves alone. That's how we grew up. So to go into the will to give unconditionally is a jump into the unknown every single time. So that's the question that's actually much more, for me, is really the question. Okay, not what happened with Abraham, but how can I activate the Abraham aspect within me? Okay, which might be, a question. I might not know the answer, but at least I can ask the question. There's a couple of people in the chat. Let's have a look and see what they're saying. Yes, that's right. The question is, what is awakening us? Did Rachel asks, Abraham realize this by the results of the tests he was given? I think the tests he was given certainly grew, him every single time. Lech Lecha, I think, was one of the tests, to actually hear that voice saying, get out of your will to receive yourselves alone and move into the will to give. That's a colossal test, actually, of trust, of letting go of the known, moving into the unknown. It's a test for each one of us. I think the possibility that God is actually saying to each one of us, Lech Lecha, right now, is a very, very, very powerful question. Yeah. How are we going to do it? Can we be at least aware of the possibility that God is saying to us, Lech Lecha, right now? And even I think just that awareness is enough. Okay? The Zohar goes on a little bit and he goes back to Avraham in a moment. So we'll see. Let's keep going for a bit, okay? This is what he says here. The Malchut, when it becomes in affinity of form with staka, meaning giving unconditionally, it actually transforms, okay, because it's now connecting with that level. So it says here, through the prayers which the tzaddikim raise up to the Malchut, which is the Shekhinah, which when it is still at the level of tzedek, okay, the lowest level, the level of judgment, they actually cause that the Malchut itself now moves up these three levels, okay, from tzedek to tzaddik to tzedakah, and becomes tzedakah. That the judgment can transform to be mercy. In other words, every single one of us, okay, has a role. If each one of us asks, prays, okay, so that the judgments that we're seeing around, okay, can by doing our mitzvot, doing our prayers, doing our whatever we can do, okay, then the judgment which we experience can transform to mercy. Why? Because we're in affinity of form with giving unconditionally, tzedakah. וזה שאומר רבי Abba בביאור כתוב, and this is what Rabbi Abba says in his explanation of the scripture, Shimoi la'abirei lev, listen to me, those who are hard of heart. Because they are hard of heart and are not praying, okay, ma'alim mein nukvin means praying or doing good deeds, by looking into the Torah and by tshuva, they are far from tzedakah. They're only involved with their wills to receive for themselves alone, and they're not giving unconditionally. And therefore, they are found in the judgments of, just what it looks like, tzedek, okay, good and bad. Why is this? Because they are not in affinity of form with the Torah, and they are not praying, and therefore they are far from tzedakah. And Rabbi Chizkiah is not actually arguing with Rabbi Abba. It's just he adds an extra dimension, okay? Meaning, because they're far from God, they have no love for God, okay? And so therefore, they're not able to transform the judgment into connection, for the judgment into mercy. Now, last bit. Tachazi Avraham. Bai לקרוב לקודשא בריך הוא והתקרב, כמו שכתוב אהבת צדק ותשנא רשע. בגין דאהב צדק ושנא רשע התקרבה לצדקה. ועל דה כתיב אברהם אוהבי. מה טעם אוהבי? בגין דכתיב אהבת צדק וכימותא דקודשא בריך הוא דרכים לאברהם מכל בני דרי. דהבו אבירי לב, ואינון רחוקים מצדקה כמו דאיתמר. Come and see. Avraham wanted to bring himself close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He wanted to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nit karev, and therefore was brought closer. Now, what does to come close mean in the language of Kabbalah? It means to be in affinity of form, okay? He wanted to be in affinity of form with the Creator. And so therefore, he was brought closer to be in affinity of form because he said, this is what I want. He didn't want to be worshipping idols. What is the biggest idol we worship right now? Ourselves. That's the idol we worship, the idol of the self, okay, that we have right now in the world. It's the biggest idol there is. The iPad, the iPhone, it's just obvious, isn't it? The selfie, okay? He wanted to get out of that. He wanted to get out of that hardening of the heart where we're only involved with ourselves. And he wanted to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the master of the universe, to the creator of all, to find him within himself. And so he was brought closer. One who asks to become more pure, they help him. How do they help him? Through through his holy soul. So he wanted, and that's the key here. What did he want? He wanted to come in affinity of form with the Holy Blessed One. That's what he prayed for. That's what he wanted. Okay, that's what we've got here in the chat. Right. Okay, I'll read out the chats in a second because they're very important. Okay, let me just finish this bit first. So he wanted to become close to himself, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what he's asking for. That's what he's praying for. And so God brought him close. How did he bring him? B'nishmata kadisha, opened his whole heart, opened his soul. V'zeh shekatuv ahavta tzedek v'tisna resha. You loved tzedek. You loved the connection. You loved the first connection, the first realization that you had of the presence of God in the world was through good and bad. And you wanted the connection with the Malchut, with the wanting to believe that every single aspect in the world that God gives us is ultimately good. V'tisna resha. And you hated evil. What's evil? Separation from God. Because all the will to receive oneself alone does is separate us from God, and it is the essence of all evil. It's the origin of all evil. All evil comes about from our use of our will to receive ourselves alone. Everything that we see on the outside, the Hezbollah, the Hamas, the Tehran, it's all coming from the exaggerated use of the will to receive ourselves alone. And you can say, well, it's them, not us, okay? But ultimately, we have to know that when we are using our will to receive for ourselves alone, we're adding that extra energy into the mix of the will to receive for oneself alone, which is outside, okay? Because we can't separate ourselves from the outside and the inside. We're both, all right? So what's happening within me, if I'm connecting with my will to receive for myself alone, then I am adding to the general energy of the will to receive oneself alone, which is out there. Mishum she'ahav tzedek v'sana resha. 1 minute, let me just disconnect this. Not problem. It's probably not for me. Because he loved righteousness and he hated wickedness. Yes. So because he loved God and he wanted to love God, he didn't love God at that moment, but he wanted to, he prayed to God. He'ela my nukvin. Okay, lot my nukvin means to pray to the next level, to I say, bring me closer to you. And then eventually that it went up to the next level, which is the tzaddik, and that became tzedakah eventually. Went from the Malchut to the Zerampin to Bina, okay, which is just another way of saying he went closer and closer and closer in affinity of form with the Creator. And that's why eventually Avraham became Ohavi, my beloved one. Why is it written Ohavi? Because right from the beginning, Ahavta Tzedek, you loved HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that Abraham loved him more than all the other members of his generation, more than his will to receive himself alone. Okay, as we've said. Now, there's some lovely comments here in the chat. Kath said, yes, the question is, what is awakening us? Absolutely. I like that one. Esther said, I think we can ask the same question about Balei Tshuva, who have no exposure to anything, but they feel a longing for something bigger outside of self. I think Hashem put this feeling within us, and those who are searching will connect to this. Yes, absolutely. And Tzila and Kaf both agree with that as well. I think in that sense, we're all Balei Tshuva. I mean, I want to include myself in this one, okay? We're all Balei Tshuva all the time, okay? So, yes. Kath says Satan is hiding within us. Satan, yeah, the Satan is another name for the will to receive oneself alone. In the Talmud, we discover that the will to receive oneself alone has got about 7 different names. Okay. One of them is the angel of death, another one is the Satan, another one is the evil inclination. Those are 3 I can think of off by heart. But there's more. Okay. Those are not individual elements. They are all one thing, the will to receive oneself alone. But it's given different names simply about how it actually appears. Sometimes Satan, the word Satan means to push somebody off the path, okay, to entice or something like that, okay. But in fact, it's just a different expression of how the will to receive oneself alone is manifesting in that particular moment. And why I really like Rabbi Ashlag's definition of the will to receive oneself alone as being, as the Yetzer Hara as being that definition, is because it's descriptive, all right, rather than a name. So what is the will to receive oneself alone? The will to receive oneself alone is the basic vessel that every single person has, that actually all creation has, which is the will to receive pleasure that God gave us so that we will be able to receive all the goodness and joy that He wants to give us in the purpose, according to the purpose of creation. So you could ask, what's wrong with it? If God created it, why is it wrong? Why is it also called the source of all evil? It's given all these negative names. And the answer is that when it's used only for one aspect of the spiritual entity alone, it becomes negative. But if it were to be used for the whole of the spiritual entity, then it would be positive. So like, for example, Rabbi Asher gives a very interesting example of this. It's in the introduction to the Panim Me'irot U'Masbirot. And there he says it's like a dog and he's got an ulcer, okay? So when he scratches the ulcer because it's itching him, he's actually causing more damage to himself and eventually could die of poisoning or something because he keeps scratching and scratching and scratching. And so therefore the pleasure he gets from relieving the itch, which is only in one part of his flesh, is actually ultimately causing a problem for the whole of himself because he's using his will to receive to only one part of his spiritual reality, of his reality. But if you take the human beings as being one soul, which is what we are, if we are acting as only to give pleasure to my own individual self, I'm like the dog scratching the ulcer, okay? I'm trying to give pleasure only to one tiny bit of the whole spiritual entity, which is called the human being, because all the human beings are part of the one soul of Adam. But if we are acting for the sake of giving, okay, and that calls, if we're acting for the sake of giving, we're giving pleasure to all we're acting as the channel of goodness, which can give light to all human beings, okay? Because we're not receiving the light for ourselves alone, but we're receiving it only to give it outwards to all human beings, then that pleasure is positive and good and healthy and connecting. Somebody's put something in the chat. Oh, good, Sheila, I like that. Great, fantastic. Yeah. Very, very, very nice. Okay. Yes, I see what Sheila means now. If you only look at one aspect of Torah, then you can also end up confused and not understanding. Yes, I think that's true. If you only look at the literal aspect of Torah, okay, and unfortunately many people do just that, then, the pshat only, then you can't really understand it. Or if you only look at the midrash, then you're never going to understand it. You have to look at the Torah as a whole. Yes, absolutely. Very good. That's true. The Torah nigle, the revealed aspect, and the Torah the nigle and the nistar and the concealed aspect together. Wonderful. Okay, everybody. Listen, I want to let everybody know I'm starting a new class on Mondays. I'm going to write this in. I'll send you the details in the WhatsApp afterwards. Mondays at 4 p.m. Israel time, which is 9 a.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be looking at, oh, sorry, there you go. We're going to be looking at an article of Rabbi Ashlag's inner teachings, the oral teachings that he gave over, either from Shamati or in Sefer Ma'amarim. And I'm looking forward to this very much, actually. So if anybody's interested, oh, Kath says it's really, really great. Don't miss it. Yes, Kath has been learning with me for a while now, and it's certainly an opportunity. It really, really is. I'm going to put I'll put the details up on the WhatsApp. Anybody's interested, let me know. Contact me, okay? And we'll see how things go. All right, I'll give you all the details. All right, Beseder Gamor. Okay, so it's a really, really opportunity to go deeply into some of the ideas that we learn here on the Thursday group. All right. Okay, very, very, very good. Wonderful. Have a Shavua, no, not Shavua Tov, it's already Shabbat Shalom coming
No,
up.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's a
I was
Shabbat
going to say
Shalom,
thank you so
yes.
much. Shabbat Shalom.
I know.
Actually, it's
There
a
you
good
go.
Shavua. It's a good Shavua. Good Shavua.
Yes, Shabbat Shalom, Bezrat Hashem. We all deserve a Shabbat Shalom, I think.
Amen.
Yeah, a nice quiet one for you guys in the north, absolutely. Bezrat Hashem. Yeah, Bezrat Hashem. It should all finish soon. So have a lovely, lovely Shabbat Shalom.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Shabbat
Thank you.
Shalom, Esther. It's Esther
Shabbat
from
Shalom.
Canada.
Shalom.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Yeah,
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, wonderful to have you all. Wonderful. Okay, Beseder Gamor. Take care. Shabbat Shalom.